Hey, before we get going, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, eToro. Let's talk about trading. Maybe your MO is just stacking sats once a week, or you're one of those cowboy altcoin traders who go deep into technical analysis. I don't know. Maybe you're just a muggle and you're trying to get into this whole cyber cash thing. Maybe you actually do want to put some skin in the game, but you have no idea where to begin. Now there's one trading app for all of that. eToro. It's a trading platform and mobile app that lets you buy and sell cryptocurrency. And it's also the #1 social trading platform in the world. Listeners, you might even be asking, what the hell is a social trading platform? Copy trading is a feature that lets you mirror the actions of top traders on the platform. This way, you can learn about due diligence and all the other technical things it might take months to pick up on your own just by copying the behavior of the top traders on the platform. So head over to eToro.com and get started on your portfolio today. eToro, smart crypto trading made easy.
You need to embrace capitalism.
Anarchy! Anarchy! I don't even know what that means, but I love it!
It is this hope which is the lever of progress.
It's my favorite Fed.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Dave Hollerith. That song you just listened to was by Mr. Pseu, our guest today. But before we get into the interview, I just want to bring up the fact that Bitcoin 2020, the official conference for the Bitcoin community, is happening at the end of March, and we're hosting. Leading up to March 27th and 28th, I've lined up a variety of different interviews with darknet market vendors, Bitcoin company CEOs, and privacy experts. The idea here and for the foreseeable future is to keep you informed and educated about what's going on in the Bitcoin community as well as what's going on outside of the world of Bitcoin, whether it's in history, the economy, technology, or some other part of the internet, to help you understand and think on your own about the nature of value itself. Heady stuff. Also, next month, our very own CK Snarks has a 4-part interview series with Bitcoin Tina. That'll be dropping soon. But anyway, I've talked enough. Today, I got an interview with A Boy Named Pseu. Mr. Pseu, Phil Gibson, writes for the Libertarian Institute. He's known about cryptocurrency for a while, but his journey into Bitcoin has been pretty recent. In that way, I think he offers a pretty fresh perspective for those of us who have been in the space for a while, myself included. Pseu also just wrote a piece called Bitcoin is Dead. We talk about that, libertarianism, the Lightning Network, music, and a ton of other stuff. A quick FYI and shout out, Pseu is a musician, and we're using his music for our intro and outro. Hope you guys enjoy it. Alrighty, here's the interview with Mr. Pseu. Well, hey, Pseu. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, partner. This is pretty dope. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So the way I found out about your work was through your article. Bitcoin is dead. Kind of clickbaity.
Very much so. That's exactly what I was going for.
It worked, and I read it, and I liked it a lot. You actually referenced a lot of Bitcoin magazine work, which we appreciate in the newsroom.
Yeah, before we get any further, I want to sincerely apologize for everyone I ripped off, but I cited everywhere I could. I'm not really a writer, so I'm just kind of like learning as I go. So if I miscited my citations, I apologize. But thanks to all of them for their great work and what they do. But they were a big help, and what they wrote was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a lot more citing than like most people do when they put out articles on Medium. So I think you're ahead of the game.
Overcompensation, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Just playing it safe.
I listen to your podcast too, and I wanted to start off by just knowing how you got interested in the Bitcoin conversation.
Oh, man. So I'm going to get in the line of the libertarian to Bitcoiner line, because
Right.
it's not like those are rare. Although I've been trying to learn more about Lightning and these partially signed Bitcoin transactions and all this crap, and then it's like maybe libertarians are the rarity because this seems really technical. But of course, when you zoom out, it's all about free money, against the state kind of stuff. So, I still feel at home.
Yeah. Lighting stuff actually gets really complicated really quickly.
Like, as ironic as it sounds, I'm so glad layer 1 is so basic, which it's not, but it still is to some point.
Yeah, and I think the logic is that it's just so new that literally everyone who's working on it basically has to be a developer contributing to it.
Yeah.
You know?
I finally forced myself to learn something, and I just started trying to learn Python. But then I got so distracted by learning like my own command line and just learning how to make like your own directories and stuff. So I have a ways to go, but as long as I can be on that same kind of like wavelength, or like maybe a wavelength of like how developers think, then at least if I'm kind of like in that same mental frame, maybe it'll just be easier for me to understand like what all is kind of going on.
Totally, yeah. Because I've noticed too, developers have trouble. I mean, it's not their job. They're trying to figure it out, so it's not their job to communicate what's going on. And so there's like naturally like a separation between them, how much they know, and everybody else.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny in tech in general when you talk to a developer, especially if you're coming at it from a not tech perspective like myself, you never get a yes or no answer. And it's so goddamn frustrating. It's like, does this mean this? It's like, well, it depends when you're... Stop. Like, no. But, no, it's... Like, God bless him, man. Like, we need people working on that. I was listening to the TFTC that came out today with David Chow, and it's just amazing how he was working on Bitcoin in high school.
That is crazy.
Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I on this earth? But we need people like that.
Yeah, some people find it early, I guess.
And then you just like get into Bitcoin, and then you like Bitcoin, and like Marty, and even I was listening to Citizen Bitcoin. Brady mentions all the time too that Bitcoin is like the Renaissance, the next Renaissance, and it's forced me to learn about economics. It's forced me to learn about tech, and just like computers in general and how the internet works, and like as simple as like packet switching. And it's really cool how everything is kind of like copy paste of what's happened to the internet already, like on Bitcoin and on Lightning especially. So I don't know if that was like intentionally planned, like from the get-go. Maybe that's what Satoshi kind of like mapped out. Like, well, just copy what the internet did. It'll work. I don't know. But even like the philosophy and game theory, it's a renaissance. Like, it forces people to like be better, or brings out a potential that they didn't know that they had. Not to say like I'm some Renaissance man or anything, but like for Bitcoin itself, I'm super thankful that it's like forced me to be someone that I didn't know I could be.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Like
what you've learned?
Yeah, well, partially that's kind of like from libertarianism, because you kind of had to unschool yourself of all the BS that you learned in school and how the world like really looks, especially when it comes to economics. And then it totally crumbles that left-right paradigm, when in reality, like if you read Rothbard, apparently like libertarians are actually the most leftist and the most radical, because, I mean, left just really means radical against the status quo of like the old right guard kind of authoritarian kings, queens, owners of the land kind of deal. So I don't know. Libertarianism, just as cringy as it is, it makes people quote unquote woke, or it just a real or at least different perspective of how things are. But that's just kind of like what makes sense to me. And I feel like everyone kind of in the Bitcoin community, I'm not saying every Bitcoiner is like that libertarian anarcho side, but
No.
it's a vast majority. So maybe that's kind of like what propelled them to make Bitcoin in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to at least have a willingness to take a leap, sort of, as far as like what you want to learn and what you're interested in the future. And it's like it's a huge leap. You know, it's like I don't know if we'll really know. Like, if Bitcoin does take off, it's going to be wildly different, I think, than how we see it now, just because we're just talking about it, you know?
I know, but it's also crazy of how fast things do change. But
Yeah.
especially hearing Kiara talk about the stuff, it's very sobering of what she brings, but it's always a safe, healthy reality check. Like, some of this might sound too good to be true, but we should at least be thankful for what has become of it, and be humble, stack sats, like they say. Just have this even keel thing and do what you can to contribute to the community. But, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Like, hyper-Bitcoinization is probably not the most ideal thing, because I forget who else said this, but, it was Catherine Coley. Like, everyone is going to get on the boat and a lot of people are going to get left behind. And we definitely don't want that to happen. We want to take, of course, the anti-Silicon Valley approach, like, move slowly and don't break anything. So we just got to be patient.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing, too, about the Bitcoin space, which is interesting, is that I see both, like, the anti-Silicon Valley approach. That's what I was, like, why I was initially attracted to cryptocurrency. But then I also do see people trying to come in being like, because I think we do believe that it could potentially make a better world. And, I see companies running with that slogan all the time. So it's like, it's a little bit of both.
It's appropriate on Lightning because that allows the flexibility. But, if what Saifedean says is true, that as long as layer 1 is the strong, cohesive core, and it's supposed to make the central banks just abide, Lightning's kind of like the guinea pig test of that.
For sure,
think about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, not calling Lightning the Fed by any means. Okay, no one freak out. But it really is like this is our time to like test ourselves, and how fast can we move and how fast shouldn't we move?
Yeah. Okay, so let's actually get into your article.
Yeah, let's do that.
So you bring up a bunch of realistic. Your article is basically explaining with real world examples why Bitcoin grew in 2019, and you kind of started off by like basically debunking the hype and FUD around the idea that Bitcoin is dead. So why did you write this?
Well, I kind of say it in the first paragraph that I had just people in the community and friends and, of course, the media. Like, I point out on LinkedIn, it said on the side, if you think Bitcoin's not trading, it's because it's not. And reading Bitcoin Magazine, I cited the article of, there's a lot of hodlers out there. So people are actually believing in it. What the mainstream media is putting out there isn't true. They're just being intellectually dishonest. And, that could be just a fine example of them actually fearing its potential. Like I mentioned later on about the congressman that wrote that open letter to the Federal Reserve of, people can go read the article. But I really kind of wrote this to, one, give myself like a high level understanding of everything that I did understand about Bitcoin, just to like double check, and really just I wrote it for other people as well, especially newer people, because I tried to give the high level ideas of like how the network works and what it is, especially the second to last, or really the last paragraph, talking about like Nick Szabo and unforgeable costliness and hash cash. I wanted to put these basic principles out there about what Bitcoin is and how it works, and take real life examples of how it's actually impacting the world and how people are benefiting from it. Like the right people are benefiting from it and the right people are afraid of it. So because we have these tangible examples, I thought it was a great opportunity. And of course, whenever there's FUD out there, you got to debunk the FUD.
Yeah. And you actually mentioned modern monetary theory.
Did I mention MMT? Oh, philosophy of monetary value. Okay, not MMT.
Yes.
Not neo-Keynesian stuff. Yeah. I mean, as I said, simply put, this theory claims monetary value is a thing that exists and is the same theory that Szabo used when he created Bitgold, and such value should come with unforgeable costliness. So basically, a money has to have a value. That's just plain and simple. That's what it is. And like, where does it get its value? Well, like the Austrian theory is like value is subjective, but I mean, it's subjective, but also based off of the properties that a money carries. And in this case, what he wanted to do is replicate gold, because gold is scarce and it's really hard and expensive to actually produce out of the earth. And he had to recreate that through Bitgold, or really Bitcoin. And he did that by using Adam Back's Hashcash, the proof of work, because I kind of like to think of Bitcoin itself as like this ball of energy kind of deal.
All right, go on.
I just, because it's a bearer asset, so it's a thing. It's created like with energy, from energy, and I just kind of see it as like this glowing golden ball of energy. And it's like a bearer asset, because if I send you Bitcoin, like, it's your Bitcoin. It's not mine anymore. It's not like email where I have like a copy of it and you have a copy of it. Like, maybe we have like some sort of receipt, but like it's almost like this tangible thing. So, yeah, I mean, as far as like the monetary, like philosophy of monetary value, I mean, that's just kind of like straight up what it is. Like, money, like as a philosophy, like money is like a thing. Like, the value of money exists. So you have to have all these properties that actually are going to give it value. And I mean, Satoshi did exactly that by using proof of work and all the other great properties that Bitcoin has. But that's kind of what I was trying to get across. But I think that's one of the most important properties, because as we all see how expensive mining is and how it's not guarantee. I mentioned this in one of the earlier paragraphs or sections in the article, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to profit from it. So I mean, the fact that Fidelity and Riot and Layer 1, like all these mining companies are forming pools, and probably because of like the hype cycle of this year. But people are willing to take their risks, and through taking risks in these hype cycles of Bitcoin spurs this awesome network development effect, like this capital that just booms and it creates jobs, and it might be for the short term, but even in the bear market, you like, as the dust settles and everything clears, there's a good percentage of people that are sincerely honest and curious about what is Bitcoin. So that clearly, like, you can't say that there is no value behind this.
Yeah, I realize what you're saying about the ball of energy. Because of mining, it's like you're saying it's literally units of energy.
It's digital gold, man. Like, that's what he was going for, and he achieved it.
Well, so you also bring up hodling. People talk about the lack of Bitcoin transactions at the end of 2019 compared to 2018, and you said that was because of hodling. Yeah.
I think that's just a case in point of people over time. Once they get to Bitcoin, after they win money or lose money, they actually invest in the time to learn what Bitcoin is and how right now it is a store of value. Lightning's going to make it the peer-to-peer, utopia that we dream of. Of course, it's not utopia. But because utopia is not a thing, that's why markets are efficient, because you need to have businesses fail and businesses, that Darwinism. But that aside, crap, what was I saying?
We were talking about hodling.
Yeah, hodling. Basically, people invested in themselves to learn more about Bitcoin, go down that rabbit hole, and learn that right now it's a store of value. And they are learning about the Fed and just the manipulation of monetary policy in the world, and not just the United States, and the bubbles that pop up here and there with, whether it be Social Security, other healthcare in general, housing, student loans. People will realize, like, hey, we're in deep doo-doo, so we might as well grasp onto something, hodl for dear life, and send this thing to the moon, and we'll have our moon rocks / Bitcoin that we're gonna survive off of. So, be humble stack sats on that end.
So Trump tweeting about Bitcoin and then Nigerians adopting it. Those were two other points you made.
Yeah. Man, the Nigerian remittance hub. Man, I can even remind myself who at Bitcoin Magazine wrote that, but it was
Colin Harper, staff writer.
That story just blew my mind. Now, I don't advise anyone to use Paxful on the daily. From what I heard, it can be scammy. Be careful. But the fact that it's worked for, I think, over half of the Nigerians, and Paxful profited like $65 million in USD, and I think more than half of that came from Nigeria itself. So just the fact that this capital is there, I mean, Bitcoin is just a proven safe haven for people that need it the most. And unfortunately, it is in the most destitute of countries that are under the worst circumstances in their economy with inflation. You know, we can talk about Venezuela, but they're just kind of like the guinea pig, like the easy cop-out go-to. But it's just... It's just... It's beautiful, man, how countries that do need a safe haven for money are able to get it through Bitcoin. Now, they got to cash it out for their crappy fiat currency, but the fact that it's there and it's an option proves that, you know, when it hits the fan in America, I mean, we have that option, and frankly, the feds see that as an option too, as I point out in that section of the article about those two congressmen writing letters of, you know, creating some alternative. And really, that was kind of a snowball effect of the whole Libra thing. Whether or not that was a red herring, I really don't know.
Libra?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going anywhere. Doesn't seem like it is.
No, it's not. But I mean, just the fact that something stupid like that.
It's super interesting, though. It's a super interesting concept, you know?
It definitely is. I mean, people questioning, hey, can this big corporate entity actually issue its own currency? And it very well could, because of, I mean, look at all the people that use WhatsApp. In fact, I think Vin Armani's his little Bcash project of like texting people Bitcoin, apparently that was in line to be the token on WhatsApp. And then I guess that went out the window when Libra came about. So that's just interesting. But the fact that there were other contenders to like do that.
Yeah.
But the fact that the government was going to shut it down either way, I don't know if it was in Facebook's favor to be a large corporate entity, or maybe they were just trying to grandstand and get some more, access to state funds and, you know, tax write-offs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Disney Plus. Disney Plus added like something like 2 million. I have no idea what the exact number is. They added a lot of subscribers within like the first 2 weeks of going live. And I think they did it through Verizon customers. And like,
oh, wow.
You know, that's like the thing about Facebook, though, is that they could do it. You know, Disney Plus did it with a streaming subscription. I mean, obviously it's like much harder to do it with money, but it's like kind of interesting to think about just because, you know, I think people talked about it, but you don't really know what that looks like until you see a company try and do it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, take Hayek's use of knowledge in society. Like, we can't predict the future, and it's anyone's call, really.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like we're in agreement about how the real use case is for the thing that's open source, like Bitcoin, the thing that's decentralized.
Oh, no, definitely. I mentioned this in the article too, just the mere fact that people all around the world, it's not nearly enough, but the fact that people all around the world are running their own full nodes voluntarily contributing, and they don't have to, but they all understand the value that Bitcoin is providing. And they're seeing it through these examples, whether it's Nigeria or Argentina or Venezuela. So it's great how it's just like incentives work, but it's not, it kind of goes beyond incentives as well. It's just people being nice, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. What are some like recent real world use cases you've seen that you haven't mentioned in this article about Bitcoin?
I don't think there's really enough, but one thing I did want to share was my own experience, and it's of all things, the reason I was able to become maximal-ish with Bitcoin was, one, my customer experience with it, or like losing my Bitcoin virginity, as I like to call it. But I used it to buy my VPN on my phone.
Oh, yeah. And
why the hell would I have to call up and ask like my branch chairman of my bank? I don't know, but I was buying a NordVPN, and Nord was like, consult with your bank or whatever. And I had to wait 20 minutes on the phone, and the lady's like, oh, you need to call the branch. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to do this with Bitcoin and see what happens, because there was 3 options, I think. It was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Ripple. And I kind of mentioned that I came from more of like an altcoiner side, I think. Vinermani and Sal Mayweather, who's like still a great friend. He was actually the first place I was blogging on, was the new TNL blog.
Uh-huh.
The new libertarian. It's so embarrassing. Like I somewhat identify with it, and I still have trouble with the word. But it's coming from this altcoiner perspective, and then I heard another friend, Donnie Gebert, on Freeman Beyond the Wall, and he had this talk about, the fiat apocalypse, and we should really start looking into all these altcoins with the uses. So I bought, my first cryptos were basic attention token, because it was like JP Morgan, but play it safe, and the Hilton uses it, so there's a use case with that. And I bought Bitcoin Cash after that because, thankfully I was able to trade that with Sal, because I thought it was really cool, because Sal uses it kind of like as a checking account, but he uses BTC as like a savings account, which fair, like that's kind of like where we all should be in reality with BTC, but still, like I wanted to get like a BitPay card, and like, pay in crypto and like dodge my taxes and everything, but what's the point? Just get Bitcoin, dude. And I go back to buying the VPN with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was like the number one thing up there. And like, what other fine example of Bitcoin being the most valuable of cryptocurrencies and everything else being a copy? Like, hello. So I guess it kind of comes full circle. But it's just the mere fact that I was able to create my own use case and become a statistic, if you will. But it was just so empowering of how fast and easy it was, and I was able to have my VPN like right then, right there, right now. And then I found the Crypto Economy podcast, and I went down that rabbit hole, because just kind of dropping all the altcoin stuff, I was, and then buying the VPN with Bitcoin, I was like, there's got to be something to like this maximal mindset. Like they can't all be assholes, And I had heard Guy on the Friends Against Government podcast, which shout out to them. They're the pretty much main reason I started my own podcast. Those guys are hilarious. If you have not listened to them,
No.
Friends Against Government. They have a very creative acronym, if you can sound that out. It's FAGCAST. Censor that if you need to, whatever. But Guy was on that, and it just kind of stayed in the back of my mind. And then after I bought my VPN with Bitcoin, I'm like, okay, this is probably like the good place to start. So I went down the rabbit hole, but it really caught my attention because Guy did the episode on an article that Sal did, which was the economics of Bitcoin maximalism. And I actually had Sal on my show talking about that article. And frankly, it was a little vain to me, but like it caught my attention mostly because in the article, like I get like a shout out, and then like to hear like my show on Guys podcast, I'm like, okay, you got my attention. And then I heard that episode, and then I listened to probably hours, years worth of stuff, and it was great. And especially him reading stuff from the Mises Institute.
Yeah.
And it kind of went back to my libertarian roots. And, thank God for Dave Smith. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a, anarcho-capitalist. So, yeah. If we can have more use cases of, like, buying VPNs and, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of asking for more status barriers in a way, which no one wants. But, I don't know. What about you? Like, have you seen any other awesome use cases of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly looking at like economies, so like places where it could be necessary, and I look at like Lebanon as like a pretty good use case. They have like a pretty bad economic crisis right now, and the banks.
Thank God for Saifuddin, then.
What?
I said thank God for Saifuddin.
Yeah. Is he Lebanese?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he teaches at the University of Lebanon. I don't know if he's in the States like permanently. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he's from there.
I should track him down and figure that out.
Yeah, get him on the show.
Yeah. No, so a lot of times I look at like economies, like China. I think is interesting. It looks like there's a lot. There's a lot of crypto flight out of China. A lot of people who are getting their money into crypto in China. I guess it's a way to protect it.
And that really goes into all the sovereign, like, individual articles and the privacy aspect of, and like just Bitcoin providing that option to opt out.
Yeah.
Like that's what those people need. And that's just so empowering. Like one of the most empowering things about Bitcoin, first of all, my favorite thing is of how it's just Austrian econ baked into the protocol and is the one living proof of what we have of like anarcho-capitalist society like functioning, but also having it provide the option to opt out because your wealth is stored in your head. Okay. And no one can take that away from you unless they shoot you. But I mean, what good does that do? Because then they don't have the information because it was in your head and now it's in your soul. Find a way to heaven or whatever you believe in. So it's just the notion of being a sovereign individual. And maybe I'm putting too much stock into that because Bitcoin is not the global standard currency yet, hopefully, fingers crossed. But again, we have to like take this slow, as I said earlier. But just everything that it does have to offer. And I have yet to run a full node. Like I'm still trying to figure out like what's good for me, and maybe I need to get to do my own research into the proper setup. But just the freedom that it offers, and understanding how it is both a store of value, but it is cash, and like that cash is in your head, and no one can take that away from you. And that's what the people in China really, really need. And unfortunately, they are having. I think they're gonna be used this bastardized version of a blockchain, where whatever they do is pretty much it's like a surveillance state. I guess we kind of already have that now, as far as having our payments being tracked. I mean, hell, I almost got flagged for trying to buy a VPN, but this is what the people in China really need at this point, is like true freedom of money, because Bitcoin, of all things, it is like the Decent Knowledge Society paints this beautiful picture of how Austrian economics is pretty much FU to the central planners. Like, how dare you try to dictate my life and tell me what to do and what not to do with my money, especially if it's Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is the ultimate FU money, if you think about it, because of all the capabilities that it provides. So that's really kind of like the most recent shower epiphany I've had. Like, you see whether it's like Ty Lopez or, these $1 billion whatever people, like the true FU money is Bitcoin. Hands down.
Yeah. Nonviolent resistance.
Civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Gandhi. But weird question. What's your retirement plan?
What's retirement?
Good point.
What's a mortgage? Like, I'm not planning on buying a house, dude. Like,
Where do you live anyway?
I live in Austin, Texas, which
Oh, nice.
apparently is the mecca of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no mecca of Bitcoin. It's decentralized as fuck.
Dude, yeah, fair point. God damn me, that I just spoke blasphemy. I'm sorry.
No, there's definitely a lot of people in the Bitcoin
should have
community
me
in
on the
Austin,
show.
though.
Oh yeah, I guess I'll spoil it. I interviewed Parker Lewis this past Saturday, and I'm gonna start going to that Bitcoin meetup, which is the Bitcoin Dead meetup. So, even greater incentive to be less shitty at coding. So I'll be way behind on what they're working on, but as long as I'm a fly on the wall, just soaking up as much information as I can. I can't say I'm not gonna learn anything. So at least there's that. But it's amazing, dude. Just how Bitcoin itself attracts people from all these different factions, every corner of the world. It is like a renaissance of ideas.
Not a ton of federal employees, I noticed.
Yeah, hopefully not. Something. Well, just think of all the technological innovations that come from the military, dude. DARPANET, dude. It was created like for military purposes, and PGP had to be fought for by Phil Zimmerman for it to be in the public domain.
And SHA too.
Yeah, dude, SHA-2 and public key cryptography. I think came from MI6. So it's like, I actually had a recent podcast. I think it's episode 118 with Dexter De La Paz, who is into like cryptids and whatnot and conspiracy theories. But the first part of that is like, dude, is Bitcoin a psyop? Like, think of all like the military intel technology that goes into it. Like, hopefully it's not. Like, hopefully all these cypherpunks were true to, like, we're going to give privacy back to people and, sovereignty, which I think they are. And to be fair, I've been listening to people like Jesse Powell of Kraken and, people that are just fighting against regulation for the exchanges, but working with people in the space and learning all these people that are on the KYC AML side, they truly think that they're doing something right, and they're just, putting on their pants one leg at a time, going to work and thinking they're doing a civil service. And God bless them. Like, the fact that I believe a majority of the people that work for the government feel like they're doing something good.
For sure they do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just the 80-20 rule. Like, 80% are just the rank and file and good at heart, hopefully. And then some of them are just meticulous mother truckers who, are mal-incentivized. And if anything, the state drives the worst kind of incentive, which is no incentive, but you get into like the political economics versus true economics. And
What do you mean by political economics?
So it's just a matter of like incentive structure, where you have like, if you have a bureau of central planners planning things out, it's kind of like if you look at like a government job like the DMV, like there's no true incentive, whereas it's differentiating like the public sector versus the private sector. Like, this is, I think, chapter 4 in the Ron Paul manifesto that I'd encourage everyone to read. But, it's just like, as the state, all it does is consume off the private sector, the ones that actually put their own funds into risk, and, the market trying to be at play the best that it can and trying to fight against the arbitrary like barriers to entry with taxation and everything. But the private sector is actually creating innovations and testing things out and failing. And you have the public sector who are just, through taxation, taking all these resources and misallocating them. So, that was a very like high level maybe lack of understanding of how that works. But, I'd encourage people to read that chapter. I think it's chapter 4. But again, like military tech, a lot of innovation came from that. So it's kind of a lot of the times when you're trying to figure out the answers of the world, you kind of contradict yourself. So it's always a nice reality check to just constantly check yourself and like prove yourself wrong or right. And I don't know. No one has all the answers, but you don't want to like stop yourself from trying to learn.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Sue, I got a random question.
Yeah.
If you had to live in a different time period and you could pick which time period would you live in?
I don't know, like watching Dazed and Confused and like being a music fan. Like I play guitar, so saying that I saw Led Zeppelin back in the day would be pretty cool.
Be
but
sweet.
even in the 70s, I could find something to bitch about.
That's a good
But
point. Yeah.
yeah, probably then. If I was a boomer, I guess that'd be pretty cool. Like be born at the late 50s, and you can like, as a kid, live through the Beatles, and then like when you come to age, that would be like the right time to like start a band, and then you could have the choice to like take like the Led Zeppelin-ish route, or like the punk route, or hell, even be born like in my parents' generation, like the late 70s, and like go through those eras. Which I think there were some questionable times in the 80s. Some of the hair metal was
Dude, I love prog rock.
I'm gonna upset some listeners maybe. Like the prog, I only recently started really respect Rush after watching the documentary of them on Netflix. But
yeah, dude. All right, you gotta check out ELO. You gotta check
Yeah.
out Yes.
I just don't like. I know there's math rock. I just don't like music that has to make me think
Dude,
too
so
hard.
many people give so much shit to prog rock.
I have mad respect for it. Like I know there's good prog out there. You need to send me some links.
Yeah. I bet most of our listeners do not give a shit.
Give a shit about what? Like
no,
music in general?
prog rock. But
Oh, they should.
yeah, well,
Like Tom Woods, man. Like the anarcho-capitalist, like loves prog.
and Neil Peart. Oh,
Oh yeah, Godspeed.
remember him? He was a drummer, insane drummer, and he
He
wrote
wrote most of the lyrics.
I think his best lyric that,
Yeah.
like, at least pertains best to this conversation is even if you choose not to decide, you still make a choice.
It kind of goes hand in hand. It's like I think it's in the book The Stranger,
Camus.
where the whole
yeah.
notion is like nothing matters, but that's why everything matters as well. Godspeed, Neil Peart. Really, I'm a musician first.
Really?
Yeah, man. Like I like forced myself to write this article because I felt like I had to, just so like my understanding of Bitcoin and everything. Like the intro and outro music of my show, that's me.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Thank you. That is by my buddy Abram Olve.
Really?
Go hit him up, A-Bum on the Twitter. But Abram Olve, he's a great drummer. He was drumming on that and he produced it. And then I wrote the lyrics and the guitar and the everything else on that. Like the chorus is "Come for the scandal, stay for the content. Every time you suffer, you're one step closer, right where you're supposed to be." And I don't know. I just thought that was something like really powerful. Everyone can relate to. Like when you think something sucks, you just make yourself stronger. Not to rip off Kanye or anything, but I think that's a good thing to remember, especially as Bitcoiners. And, as tough as it is when we're trying to figure out, what is this scaling thing going to look like during the bull run? When layer 1 gets clogged with high fees, like is Lightning going to be able to scale and even compete with fees on top of that? So, it's kind of like trying to get over those obstacles and really getting over the obstacles of understanding how Bitcoin works and just getting over the obstacles of like your daily life as well, and just challenging yourself to learn and live yourself. So that's kind of like what the whole song of that was wrapped up in. But I've been playing guitar, not as much as I wish, but I started when I was 10, and wanted to like join a band, but it's really hard to find the right people to jive with. So I don't know, I got stuck doing podcast and Bitcoin stuff. So hopefully it doesn't turn into a complete waste of time. But of all the ideas for articles, what I want to do is encapsulate that like in a song, because whatever message you're trying to get out, it's really about changing the culture. Like Car Camp It from the Friends Against Government podcast really like emphasizes this. Like if you want to change people's minds, you gotta change the culture. If you want to spread a message, like Michael Malice brings this up. Like politics is downstream from culture, and there's no truer statement than that. So if I can embody like these principles of freedom into fun, catchy songs everyone can enjoy, maybe I can like propagandize them into being hodlers. Who knows? But once I can get like the time and resources to like really buckle down to like focus on like music and the podcast full time, like that's hashtag goals right there.
I feel like a song about Bitcoin, I've heard a few songs about Bitcoin, and I feel like a really good song about Bitcoin would not have lyrics about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be really, because if it's like Bitcoin and you make all these like proof of work puns and shit, like it's not gonna fly, dude. You have to be subtle with it. Bad. Like, Matt Odell was saying about the BTC Pay merch, how it's got to be subtle. Like, just maybe like a small little logo, or not even a logo. Like on the merch that you sell, it's like, it's got to be kind of like a subculture thing. Like someone notices the hat or the shoes, or like the football player that wears the BTC Pay cleats. It's that. Like, it's got to be classy. It's got to be kind of like this nice undertone where it's, it's humble. Like, stay humble, stack sats. Like, it's that kind of message that you have to portray. So, it's not to take the, you don't understand kind of thing. Like this little subtle, like art smidge against like the corporate like public, but it can't be tacky at the same time,
Yeah, dude, I think that's a really good place to end this on. Thanks again, guys, for listening. We're gonna go out one of Pseu's songs. You can find his podcast, writing, and music through his Twitter handle at Mr Pseu. Mr Pseu. All right, take care. The Bitcoin Magazine podcast is a BTC media-produced podcast on the Let's Talk Bitcoin network. You can find us on Twitter at Bitcoin Magazine, and you can find out about other engaging shows we produce by subscribing to our feed on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.